Welcome to the Raven's Call. I'm Eric Woodweaver Sjerven, goat of the Ridgar folk here in East Texas, and I'd like to welcome you to the show. This is a show where I ramble on about different heathen-related subjects, just kind of whatever pops to mind at the time. Sometimes I get recommendations from the Facebook group, requests from viewers like yourselves, and I love doing those kind of things. So this one that we're going to do today is born out of a conversation I had at our local park moot for East Texas heathens. So before we jump into it, I want to do some of the housekeeping stuff. All of my contact information is down below in the description. If you've got any questions, any recommendations, requests, things like that, hit me up down there. Please subscribe to the channel. Subscribing helps to get the channel out there to other people, but it also encourages more of these type of videos to propagate in your own feed on YouTube. So the more you interact with my videos and videos like it, the more heathen-related videos you will see pop up in your news feed. So make sure you ding the bell too. Click that bell so you get notifications on so you don't miss anything. All right, without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump into today's subject. Today's subject is past lives. Okay? Now, past lives is a subject that comes up a lot. It's something that I deal with a lot in particularly neo-pagan individuals, people who come from kind of a general neo-pagan background into heathenry, or who are interested in heathenry but definitely have more of an eclectic kind of view of the world. And I run into heathens that have differing points of view on past lives. Some are, all on board with it. Some are like, it's not really how it works, blah, blah, blah. Again, like most things, I'm middle of the road. Now, keep in mind, on all of my videos, this one included, this is just how I see the world. This is, the way my mind works. And so, it's going to be unique to me. We'll see where it goes from there. And hopefully it'll encourage you guys to think about it more on your own and decide how you feel about these particular subjects. I always see some very interesting points of view pop up in either the Facebook group or in the comments down below. So it's cool. I like it. I dig it. So, past lives. In order to discuss past lives, I have to refer back to some of my previous videos, okay? Because this is going to be kind of an indirect retouching on the reincarnation video that I've already done, because reincarnation, past lives, hand in hand, okay? If you haven't seen my reincarnation video, I highly recommend that one before this one, simply because the context needs to be there, and I discuss things in a lot more detail there. It's not necessary, but I recommend it. I also recommend watching the soul complex videos that I did, because it all ties into the soul complex, and this is kind of how I see things. You need to understand how I view the soul to understand how I view past lives and things like that. Okay, so past lives in general. The idea of past lives is that the body, the soul has had past lives before, and people seem to be able to remember events or memories or experiences from those past lives in their current one. Essentially, this manifests in either vivid memories of events that couldn't possibly have happened in this life, frequently in the form of dreams, waking dreams, what some would call daydreams, but of a different nature than just the imaginative dreams that we typically have. They tend to manifest in very real, very visceral experiences, and are recurring and consistent over time. So people will frequently believe, well, I was a blacksmith in a past life, that's why I have an affinity for metals in this life. Or I see a lot of it with relation to past life deaths, such as, I must have drowned in a past life because I'm terrified of water in this life, or I must have fallen from a great height in a past life because I'm terrified of heights in this life. There's some element of that. It's not spot on, but I can't deny people's experiences, because they are their own individual experiences. They are very much experiencing these memories, these feelings, and these sensations. I just don't necessarily think it is what everyone always thinks it is. I come at things a little bit differently. So, in essence, to discuss this, I have to, like I said, retouch on reincarnation. Now, reincarnation is the idea that we are reborn throughout either generations or different time periods, etc., etc., etc. Now, if you remember back to my reincarnation video, if you've watched it, if you haven't, then here it is. The soul of the human is made up of multiple different parts. See the soul video for all those different parts. These different parts come from different ecosystems. You've got the spiritual realm of the spirit, the soul elements. You've got the Fera, which is tied to the Vetir of Midgard. You've got that part of the soul that's the gift from the gods, that Odr, and that tie to the divine madness, that gift of creativity, and that little spark that makes us what we are, that gift from old and Vidi, when they created mankind to begin with and crafted what we would become throughout the generations. All of these different soul elements, upon death, dissipate back into the ecosystems from whence they came. Just like the human body, the lich, is when it is deceased, it returns to the earth and becomes reincorporated in that ecosystem. It feeds the ground becomes the plants feed the animals feed us. It's all a big circle, the circle of life. We all are aware of it. That's how it works. And so this particular process works on a spiritual level as well. Upon death, the Odr recedes and it goes back to the sacred realm of the gods, because that is their gift to us, and upon our demise it comes back to them, because it can't exist without a host in the mundane world. It goes back to the gods, as it were. Our spirit also dissipates, and those different elements go back to different portions. Like some of them are tied to the folk soul, the soul of the family line, the tribe, such as tied to the Fylgja and the Haminya. This mane that is passed on through us, our Orlok, it is tied in there, and that is passed down through the family line. It is through that we can inherit from our ancestors different things from our ancestors. That's manifested through spiritual elements as well as the physical elements of the lich, because of DNA and genetics, things like that. These are physical echoes of traits of our ancestors. And spiritually, you can encourage the seeding of a portion of an ancestor's soul in an individual through naming them after that ancestor. It creates kind of a beacon to encourage that aspect of that ancestor's soul to take seat in this new individual. It's not like a Hindu or Buddhist reincarnation where the soul is in its entirety reborn. It is reborn in part. There's a piece of us that comes back. Similarly, each and every piece of our soul complex comes from somewhere. I find that metaphysics mirror physics in a number of ways, particularly in dealing with energies. And basic Newtonian physics is that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can simply change form. Same thing with matter. This is the way of spiritual energies, just as it is with the materials that make up the physical body. Every atom that makes up my lich came from something on Midgard. All the carbon, all of the whatever elements, the iron in my blood, everything came from somewhere and has been crafted into the lich that I have now. Similarly, it continues to be fed by these elements from the earth around me, from Midgard. And the cells and atoms that make up my body now are not the same ones that I was born with. Doesn't mean it's not my body. It's still my body. All of these things are incorporated into what is me in the now. And here's the crux of things. We are us now in Vertandi. That is that which is. There's Urth, Vertandi, and Skud. That which was, that which is, and that which could be. And so, we exist here in Vertandi. We are fed by Urth and constantly working towards Skud. Now, in so doing, we are constantly in flux as far as our bodies and our souls go, because we're constantly fed by these energies. We're constantly taking in energies, expending energies, changing forms, give and take kind of thing. There is, like for the luck, for example, there's plenty of examples throughout history wherein like kings would send their luck with one of their emissaries in order to, or a portion of their luck, in order to encourage good things for this emissary as they go and do these things for their liege. This is very much sending a piece of our luck with them. We are imparting a piece of our energies to them, and that is going out. we continue to feed our luck by engaging in the gift exchange with the gods and goddesses, with the Vetir, with our ancestors, to bring luck in and to help build that. It is through the gift exchange that we can maintain that level of luck. Now, as such, each of the soul complex elements functions similarly. We are feeding those elements with like-kind energies from Midgard, from Asgard, from the worlds around us, in order to keep us rejuvenated. Even the Fera soul, which is tied to the earth around us, has to be re-energized through connection with the natural world. I had somebody ask me recently, how do they bring that out because they haven't had any experiences with it before? And I would say to them that it's simply feeding it. You have the old adage, I think it's a Native American adage, of the two wolves within, which one do I feed, etc., etc., etc. You are literally feeding the wild within you with energies from the wild without. These energies are constantly in flow. Okay? So keep in mind that the elements that make up the body and the soul are constantly in flux, but we are only us in the Verthandi, in the here and now. We only exist here when all of the soul elements that comprise us are here, present, and in this specific configuration. We are constantly changing and growing as people, but essentially the core of us stays true. In psychology, we look at personality, which is fairly stable throughout life. There are certain key things that are tied to what I would see as the core elements of the soul complex. So IQ being tied to the mind elements of the soul complex is fairly fixed throughout life. You may see some deviation in the numbers, but a lot of that has to do with testing, inaccuracies, and sometimes physiological damage. That can significantly change IQ. But for the most part, left to its own devices, IQ is fairly stable. Personality is the same way because that's tied to a lot of our spiritual elements within the soul complex. So that carries through life, even though there are some minute changes, there's some shifts, because we are constantly feeding those things. Just like the mind grows with every new piece of information that you give it, that doesn't mean it's not your mind anymore. It's still your mind. You've just simply added to it, expanded on it, and things you have forgotten are no less a piece of yourself, even though they may not be there in the mind at that moment. So, this constant flux, these constant energies coming in, you got to keep this in mind as we go forward on this, but we're going to look specifically at each of these elements coming from somewhere in their respective ecosystems means that they have had experiences before. Just like certain metals can remember their shape, like you can, if you take a metal that's got good strong memory, you can bend it for quite a ways, but then it's going to spring back to its shape that it knows, that it remembers, that it fixates to. Just like our bodies, our muscles can remember things because they're used to that constant motion. They automatically fire off in that sequence when trained to do so over time. So if a soul element has been exposed to certain things that are significant, strong memories, or repetition over time, they can maintain an echo of that, similar to, say, the color of my beard being passed down from my ancestors. Even though my dad's beard doesn't look like this necessarily, someone in my ancestry does have my coloration. And so that's an echo that's been passed on to me through my lich. It is a piece of a past life, if you will, that has been brought forth in a physical means. Experiences tied to these soul element pieces can manifest in the form of memories if they are tied to soul elements that are prominent in that kind of space. So like mind elements, some of the Hammer kind of elements, can bring forth visceral memories of past experiences because that's been burned in. If you've ever left an image on an old school LCD TV for too long, you'll see that that image will burn into the screen and you'll get a ghosting. No matter what you see, there's always that ghost of what was on the screen before because it's been burned in. These are burned in kind of memories, echoes, and so they are passed along to us, and we can experience those echoes through our soul complex as it is now. That does not necessarily mean that you were a blacksmith in a past life. This is where I differ with people in a lot of ways. It doesn't necessarily mean that you were a blacksmith in a past life, but it may very well mean that a portion of your soul was tied to a blacksmith in a past life, and echoes of that come to you. The reason that I won't say necessarily that an individual is what this past life was is because that past life was comprised of soul elements of their own. And those soul elements broke apart, were dissipated into the ecosystems from whence they came, and a portion of that came to you now. Just like these new energies that we have fed in doesn't mean that, just because I ate that cabbage doesn't mean that I am that cabbage. I was that cabbage in a past life. That cabbage is now very much a part of me, and I incorporate its energies, I incorporate its base matter into my lich. It has become a part of my lich, it has informed my lich, it has become fuel from my lich, but it is not my lich, and my lich is not that cabbage. I've broken it down from what it was and turned it into something new. But if there was something in there that was negative, poison, and I ingest that, it is now a part of me. It doesn't mean that I am the poison, but it does mean that I have that poison within me, and then therefore it will wreak havoc with my system. So luck very much is this way, as far as we inherit our luck from our ancestors, and then we engage in the gift cycle with the gods and goddesses to kind of replenish that luck and to build our own luck in the current world. It's that same kind of, even though I have their luck, I am not necessarily their luck. Their luck is a part of me, and I use that going forward, but it is only mine here and now. In the future, it will be someone else's, tied to my family line, passed on by my fylgje. So, in essence, each of these soul elements can maintain echoes of past lives. These echoes can manifest in the form of memories or visions. Okay, so this still has a great deal of value because these predispositions of soul elements within the soul complex can feed and inform who we are now. Very much, if you have a soul element that was tied to someone who liked to work with metal in the past, and metal seems to be ingrained in that soul element, then it's probably going to come out in your current soul composition. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you were that blacksmith in a past life. Part of your soul complex may be tied to a warrior, and you may have vivid memories of a battlefield in old UK. You may have memories of a Roman soldier on the mainland going to battle. It doesn't necessarily mean you were that general in a past life, but it may mean that you have a piece of your soul complex come from their soul complex, and that you have that in common. That is a tie. That is a pull. That does tie us somewhat to their weird. It is not a super strong tie, depending on the soul element that it is, but it is a tie nonetheless. Just because I may have the soul element of, Grand Yehu from Hababa, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to inherit his luck. It doesn't mean I'm going to inherit his weird. Those are his, and we're probably tied to his family line. All it means is I may have a sliver of something come along that impacts who I am now, but it's still very much a piece of my Orlog. It is a part of what makes me me, the past that has led up to me. And this is where you see some of the complexity of Orlog, because Orlog is all of the energies that comprise who we are and everything that has come before. All of the energies that have led to making us who we are in the here and now are our Orlog, everything that's gone into the well. And it's not just what our ancestors have done. It's not just what we have done in the past. It's not just those inherited elements. It's all of the inherited elements that boil together and comprise us now. So, Yes, I do believe in past lives. No, I do not believe in them in the same way that, say, a Buddhist would, or say that a Hindu would, anything like that. I go to those because those are ones that are largely used as examples for past life and reincarnation. There are other folkways and traditions and religions that utilize this, that is a part of their worldview, but it does not necessarily reflect, these are just easier. So anyway, in my view of things, just my view, these soul elements, these echoes, can manifest in a lot of ways, and we can choose how we incorporate that into our here and now, how we work with that in our weird. One of the things that I would like to caution people on is placing an overfocus on these past life echoes, because, like I said before, that was them in that moment. You are not the fullness of that past life. You are not all of the soul elements that made up that individual. You are you in the here and now. You have your luck, you have your orlog. They may be a part of it to a small degree, but nowhere near to the degree that your ancestors are and those that gave you life, that shaped you into who you are. A person to whom you are unrelated but was a mentor to you in early life has more impact on your orlog than that piece of your soul element that may be inherited from Grand Yehu back in the day. Because all that is an echo, whereas this is a solid imprint. This is something in your life experiences or in a direct line to you that has a very, very strong visceral impact. The past life elements of the soul elements are, like I said, echoes. They're there, but they're not fully there. Despite how vivid some of these can be, that does not necessarily mean that you were, Queen Sheba. It doesn't necessarily mean that you were this little villager in the outskirts of whereveristan. It simply means that there's a piece of that in you. If anything, it goes to show the interconnected nature of weird in our society as a whole, in the world in general. Because even though other faiths don't necessarily see it this way, mine is very much a worldview. This is how I see the world working. It is not... It's just how I see things. This is my reality. This is what I see around us. And so even the beliefs of other faiths and other traditions make sense within my worldview in that, yes, they may believe in reincarnation, but I don't think it is what they think it is. I think it's this. This is how I see things working within the paradigm of my worldview and how I understand the world operating. Other people are going to have different worldviews, so they're going to have different takes on things. But the reason that I caution on placing an over-focus on these past life regressions is because it can distract you from what's actually important, your actual, the strong ties to your orlog, to your otala, that rune that represents the immaterial wealth, those things that don't have physical bearing, unlike Feo. This is ancestral ties. This is ties to the land. You actually have more impact to your orlog from unrelated people who lived in the area that you live in now, as far as shaping that world around you, which then set up all of the social paradigms that influenced you in early life, than you do with someone who you may share a soul piece with from way back in the day. Similarly, since we're talking about this whole element of past life echoes and whatnot, the idea of soul partners, mated souls. I have some interesting ideas on that too. And this all ties into the same thing, which is why I'm not going to spin off and make it its own video, because honestly it's a short little aside. But those mated souls, paired souls, soul mates, those can be one of two things in the way that I see this. They are either soul elements from individuals that had strong ties in the past, strong wells, gravity wells of weird, and so that continues on, that echo does, and so those pieces are drawn together. Watch my gravity wells and weird if you want to see kind of where I'm going on that. See how interconnected all these videos are? This is just the way my mind works. So these soul elements can have an attraction to each other and then be drawn together. Similarly, because we're talking about soul elements and pieces of soul elements, keep in mind that it breaks apart into its core, its base elements. So like the body, I may have atoms in me that were King Arthur, but that doesn't mean that this body is King Arthur's body. It just simply means a piece of it may be. Similarly, a piece of your soul element may be from another soul element from someone else. It may be a piece of something else, etc., etc., etc. It fragments out in fractal pattern kind of thing. So that doesn't necessarily mean the entire soul element came from that one individual. It may just be a speck of it that is in there. The amount of it can impact how strong the tie is, how strong the influence is, etc., etc., etc. Which is why, you know, things passed within a family line are stronger, is because it hasn't dissipated out as far. It's still core, so it's still more together. So in that these pieces break down into their core elements, into their base elements, it is entirely possible that your soulmate may actually be a person that bears another piece of that soul element that was at one point in time a cohesive whole. So if two pieces that used to be of a cohesive whole find each other, they may be drawn together, in essence trying to become that cohesive whole again. So what you end up with is this magnetic draw to individuals, thusly the well of weird, that gravity well in weird, because strong gravity well, having been one soul piece together, those elements will continue to draw together. Thusly, soulmates, people that will find each other seemingly in recurring lives and things like that. What you're getting is the echo of these two soul pieces that are constantly beating against everything else in the world to try and get back together to do this. So, or like I said, it could be two individuals with strong soul elements that were tied together at one point in time. Gravity pulls them back together, and each time they find each other, it reinforces that magnetic pull, strengthens that gravity well within weird, and thusly increases the gravitational pull over time. So, in essence, it is the exact same thing as past life memories, just manifested in a different fashion. So, what I see past lives as, what I see soulmates as, is all manifestations of how the soul complex ecosystem works. And so, it's just like the ecosystem that we see in the physical world around us, only on a spiritual level, and much grander because it doesn't necessarily operate by the same physical boundaries as, say, the material world, because it's the spiritual world. And so things travel differently, flow differently therein than necessarily in the physical world. And we only perceive things existing in the physical world the way we do because of the way our minds work and the way we codify things around us. Everything is actually a swirl of protons, neutrons, and electrons, and the only thing that makes me separate from, say, my coffee cup right here is my perception of the differentiation. In essence, if you get down to the base, right up in there at a subatomic level, there is no division between me and this thing. It's just the space between atoms and the space between subatomic particles. So, that being said, the physicality of things is not always necessarily what we perceive it to be in our limited understanding. So from the spiritual side of things, where physicality is not as hard set, you can have influences from clear across the world because that's just the way that ecosystem works. So anyway, that's kind of my rundown on past lives and on soulmates, which is kind of a gimme on that one because, again, it's just kind of all part and parcel with the same thing. I know a lot of you guys are going to have different points of view on this. That's okay. I like to hear these things. I'm sure some of you are going to pop them up in the comments. I've got a core group of about 6 or 7 people that really like to pop in there and comment on the videos. I love seeing you guys pop up. Some of them I have fairly differing points of view with, and it always is kind of entertaining to see how somebody else looks at things. So I have no problem with that. Hopefully this will get you guys thinking about these things and maybe exploring them in some more detail, some of the minutiae, and understanding that just because something significantly negative may have happened to an individual with whom you share a soul element. Say someone died in a past life in a fiery crash, and that a piece of their soul element is passed on to you. That does not necessarily mean that you are bound by their fate, that you need to be afraid of fire because of this. You can overcome that because that's not the whole of who you are. You are not making up for someone's mistake in a past life because they're not your mistakes. That was their mistakes. The only thing that you might be making up for is negative influences through Orlog on your luck, family luck, things like that. And then you're trying to do your part to correct the family luck so that what you feed back in is more positive than what you've inherited. So you try to build it in strength by bringing in new luck energies, feeding that into the well. It's a constant flow of energies. So anyway, this was a bit of a ramble. Hopefully you guys will find it interesting. This is kind of often the woo-woo stuff of things, but it's something that I find particularly interesting. And in a conversation at East Texas Heathens, which is part group that I do, the meetup group for local heathens, spawned out of a conversation there that I found particularly interesting and thought I'd share with you guys. So if you like the videos, like I said, please hit like below, subscribe, ding the bell, you know the deal. Hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you next time. Hail. May your ancestors smile on you. All right, without any further ado, let's talk about, well, we'll jump into monkeys. Yeah, monkeys. Pause. Shh, I lost my place. Gotcha. All right, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'd like to welcome you to the show. If this is your first time, then you won't know this, but that's because I'm an idiot and I'm doing this as, Okay, let's try again. And I'd like to welcome you to the show. Holy crap. This is bugging me. Hang on a second. We're gonna, blooper reel stuff. Yeah, I know, it's ridiculous. You can't tell I'm tucking away a flash drive inside my outer shirt into my inner shirt pocket. Ridiculous, I know, but it irritates me, and I can't have irritants while I'm doing the show. We'll spruce up a little bit. There we go, kill it, and let's do another. There we go. Let's talk about past life regression. And in the 3, 2, 1, let's jam. Hi there, I'm Eric Wordweaver Sjerven, Goathie of the Ridgar folk here in East Texas, and I'd like to welcome you to the Raven's Call. I really need to eat.